Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app on Apple Podcasts, on Android or Apple. You can use Spotify. We're recommending that you stream us from there from now because they've been a little bit quicker of late. Also, check out Off the Floor. That's our Discord server. Link is right there in the description. $2.99 per month. This is where you find the most heat, also the most NBA. We take everything good from Twitter and we put it there. We wean out we're like a strainer. We take out all the stuff that you don't need. Come over to Off the Floor. You can check us out 10 different channels plus the stage shows. Link right here in the description. Again, check it out. It's Off the Floor, and you'll find all of our crew there, including during the NBA Finals. And now, today's episode.
Mercy, luxurious, Heat Nation, yeah. Mercy and Lago, down to Biscayne.
Yikes. Five on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frauds.
Down to Biscayne.
Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, it's about have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the Five Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to Five on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick at Five Reasons Sports. I got Sean Rochester. Follow me at S. Rochester NBA. We've really got the studios working today. I'm in some dimly lit hotel room, and you're what are you in? Are you in an RV? What are you doing here? You're driving down the roads of Pennsylvania.
I'm on my way to an AAU tournament in the middle of Central PA. I'm in a Sheetz parking lot. If you don't know what a Sheetz is, it's like a JV version of Wawa. And their Wi-Fi service here is a JV service of anything respectable. So hopefully it works.
No, I understand that. Well, look, I get it. I've had to do this on many different parking lots. By the way, my daughter goes to school in Davie, and they have not introduced Wi-Fi in Davie yet. They will be getting to it shortly after the next rodeo. Anyway, speaking of rodeos, not the first rodeo for the New York Knicks in terms of changing their head coach, and that's what we're going to talk about today. We're taking some NBA and league issues, applying it locally to the Heat, and we're going to explore a question today, which is, we know that Eric Spoelstra is safe. He's safe for as long as he wants to coach the Miami Heat. He's been coaching the Heat since 2008. He's the longest tenured coach in the NBA. You mentioned it before we came on. There are really two teams that are operating a certain way in this regard: the Heat and the Warriors, with Kerr and Spoelstra, who happen to be two of the USA Olympic and national team coaches. And then there's everybody else. And Eric Spoelstra has become this. This is one cause in the NBA. Like, every time another coach gets fired, even if he may not be the biggest fan of the coach, he will back the coach and talk about how ridiculous it is that other organizations don't support that coach the way that he's been supported with the Heat. And I've had this conversation with Spoelstra way back. I know he's had it with others since, which is, that he had felt that he could have been fired 3 different times by the Heat very early in his tenure. The first was, of course, he got hired in 2008. Pat gave him the job out of the video room, and he could have been fired when they got LeBron, because at that time there was some question about whether LeBron would come to play for an inexperienced coach. He could have gotten fired at 9 and 8 when they fell to that in Dallas. And of course, had the whole situation with Bumpgate and 55 minutes closed locker room, players only meeting with Dwayne and others talking, and then stuff getting leaked by LeBron's camp to ESPN and all the mess that ensued after that. And instead of getting fired, Riley, the rest of the organization, empowered Spoelstra. He had a very strong press availability after the next shoot around and was the coach, obviously, going forward. And then he believed he could have been fired after they lost the 2011 finals, as we've seen that sort of stuff happen. So 3 times within basically a 1-year period that he believed he could have been fired. And instead, now here we are 14 years after the 2011 finals, and he's still the head coach. But it does I think, well, although I don't think the majority of Heat fans are saying fire Eric Spoelstra, they'd be insane to say that. And even as insane as some of them are, I don't think they would. But I think that there is a feeling among some in the fan base that the Heat will just stay the course on stuff. And although that has worked the majority of the time, other organizations are more open to making significant changes. Is that fair? And how does it apply again? With neither of us endorsing fire Eric Spoelstra, I don't think you and I ever would. Is that fair in terms of the way that some fans see it overall as an organizational philosophy?
Yeah, I think, sometimes me, you, Greg, we get characterized as carrying water for the front office and those types of things. Like, Spo's not immune to criticism. Like, he clearly made mistakes last year. He's made mistakes in the past. Doesn't mean that he's still not the best coach in the NBA or one of the best coaches in the NBA. You look at Daigneault, the decision to change his starting lineup. He may be one of the best coaches in the NBA with the best team, and he might have made a decision that was a bad one. So no one's perfect, and so criticism is okay, and I would never say that. But I think you look at the model that Golden State and Miami has, and stability is for a reason because those guys are really, really, really good coaches. And the front offices have been pretty much stable. I mean, obviously there's been some changes in Golden State, but Miami, there hasn't, for a reason. Adam Simon and his crew, they've been pretty consistent. You keep them around for a reason. If we miss 2 draft picks in the next 2 years, you don't throw Adam Simon out and get somebody new just because you want somebody new. I think new is not always better. And I think we had that conversation a few weeks ago about the assistant coach. That's kind of my mindset there too. Like, I understand infusing a new voice, but also like replacing and getting rid of, like, what are we doing? And that's why I think we apply this out to the NBA with the Knicks and other teams.
Well, the Knicks now they're going to have 16 head coaches since Pat Riley left them. Okay. 16 head coaches. By the way, that's not even the most in the NBA. But the Heat have had 3 in that time. They've had Riley. I know Ronnie Rothstein had like a short stint when Pat took some time off, but I'm not even going to count that because Ronnie was the head coach before. He was the first head coach, Ron Rothstein. But you've had Pat, you've had Stan for that short period of time, which was basically what, 2.5 seasons, and then obviously Pat came back, and then you've had Spo since 2008. San Antonio is only having a different head coach, obviously, because of Pop's situation, his health situation. He's still in the organization, but essentially, it has been San Antonio, it has been and Golden State, and it's so crazy to think that. Like, I remember when Steve Kerr had to make the decision between the Knicks and the Warriors, if you go way back. And Kerr took over from Mark Jackson, and that was controversial. Maybe Kerr would have been the head coach all this time, although more likely under James Dolan, probably Kerr would have been out in 2 years, just like Derek Fisher was, just like others were. Okay. And Kerr obviously, got in a situation where he inherited Curry and Clay and Draymond and then elevated them. But I guess the overall point is, and we got into this as you mentioned in the assistant coach podcast, is that I think stability is obviously a plus. Okay, I think if you can have it or not have it, and sometimes lack of success undermines stability. Okay, because you have to make changes because you have no choice. But I prefer that organizations see things through. So I think when we talk about it in this context, to me, it's okay. If you're going to keep stability, then you have to continually be open to challenging yourself with the current people you have to new ways to doing things. And I think that's where you and I are with the Heat right now, that they, the new CBAs have changed the way that NBA teams operate. They know it. Okay. They may not love the way the CBAs have changed, but they obviously know it. They understand it. They're trying to grapple with it. They're not like ignorant to the changes that have occurred in the way they need to operate as an organization. But we just have to acknowledge the old ways of doing things for them they don't work anymore. Clearing the cap space and just saying, hey, it's Miami, why wouldn't you come, which is kind of Pat's philosophy about 2010, that there's lots of reasons not to come, and a lot of them are because they can't, or you have to deal with another team on the other side to make a deal, whereas before it was, okay, we have the cap space, just come into it. Okay, and there's no issue with it. But I think specific to Spo, and we talked about the assistant coaching part of this, I think fans sometimes sense that, well, he's not going to get fired, So there's really nothing that he can do that, is going to put him in any kind of jeopardy. And to me, I say, because he's not going to get fired, I would like to see him experiment even more than he does. Is that fair? Because he has really nothing to lose other than the fans getting irritated at him. He's not losing his job. He's not losing his contract. He's not losing any of that stuff. He's not going to lose his place in Heat history. He could literally try anything, and it would be acceptable. Is that a fair way to look at this?
No, I agree with that. I mean, when you have that stability, like if you look at the Dolphins right now, I think Mike McDaniel is on the opposite end of that, right? Like he's really going to have a good year for his job. And so what can he explore? I mean, you talking like strategy, you're talking roster moves, both. I mean, it's
I want
a
to
lot of
well,
ways.
we've talked about the offense, okay, and a lot of this has to do with personnel, right? He does not have elite offensive personnel to work with. I don't know that he's going to get it this offseason. We've talked a lot about Durant. I know there's mixed feelings about what you give up for Durant, and the market does look to be a little bit more robust for Durant, at least in what we're getting in social media and some of the reports, than maybe our guest Brian Gelsiler or others have indicated. That there seem to be more teams that are like, okay, if we can't get Giannis, we're going to try to get KD. And so you're talking about 3 or 4 teams in the West, 3 or 4 teams in the East that could be factors here. And so if that's the case, I don't know where the offensive injection is coming from this offseason. It's hard to see it. With this current roster, they have really one plus offensive player. It's Tyler. Okay. I mean, really, they have one plus offensive player, and obviously there are limitations on the other end with him. And so I'm wondering, you know, how he's going to maximize this roster. But I would like to see him innovate even more than he has in recent years. I don't feel like, and again, you have a better eye for this than I do. I don't feel like there's been as much innovation from him over the past couple of seasons offensively.
Yeah, and I agree with you that I think it's mostly about the parts that are there. There isn't really an offense that he could install over the summer that suddenly makes some of these guys really good offensive players. Their talent is their talent. However, I think it's not thinking about fixing it, it's making it better. Like there isn't a certain style that's going to fix this team's offense, but can you improve it? Absolutely. And I think just that mindset of like the actions in the NBA are relatively the same. Like there's not many teams beyond really the 2 teams that are left that play drastically different than others. Like Golden State and Memphis, they play a little bit different in terms of what they do with their 5 out and their screening actions. But like most teams are running the same types of actions. The difference is the talent. So I think I agree with you that Spo could bring in, whether it's him going out and exploring by, he historically he went into Oregon and watched them, play football with Chip Kelly's innovative ideas. Like he doesn't have to necessarily bring someone in, but I think anyone that's in any profession, whether it's coaching or otherwise, you're always constantly trying to learn and improve and grow in your trade. And I think that's what Spo's going to do. Like he cannot continue to run back the same things. He did adjust it last year, though. We have to say that, though. He did adjust it.
He did.
It just didn't work. And
it didn't work.
I'll give him a little bit of pass because while it didn't work, there was also a lot of circumstances around that where things were moving around. So, but things have to change. I mean, there's no getting around that. The offense has not been good historically for the last almost 10 years. I mean, it's been too long since they've had a good offense.
All right. On the other side of this, I want to get to a quote. It's actually from the New York Knicks release when they fired Tom Thibodeau. So I want to run this by you because it is really antithetical again to the way that the Heat would operate in this sense. But there are some in New York who are applauding the way that the Knicks have done this. So I want to at least be fair to it. Before we do, speaking of fair, this has been an unfair competition so far. We're having a competition on Prize Picks. Use the code 5 FIVE. You put down your $5, you get $50 to play right away. It's legal in the state of Florida. You know all that, so just do that right now. If you do that, you're also eligible for our contest to win more in promo funds, more than just the $50. And all you got to do is before every game, check out the tweet that I'm going to pin up to the top of the 5 Reasons Sports Twitter page, of course, the hub of South Florida sports. And on that tweet, okay, Myself, Greg, Alex, and Brady are all posting our plays for the night. We have $20 to spend every night. Now, some of us turn $20 into an additional 45, like me. Some of us turn it into an additional 15, like Greg, and some of us turn it into nothing, like Brady and Alex. But you're allowed to choose Brady or Alex if you want, if you think they're going to have a comeback in game 2. So check it out. Use the code 5 FIVE. Put down your $5, get $50 to play right away. And again, join our contest. You can win even more promo funds, and that's on the 5 Reasons Sports Twitter. Alex is going to go for broke again. That's what he always does. We'll see how that works out. Brady, that's the biggest upset of the year, actually, that he got shut out on all of his cards. So check that out. Go to Prize Picks. Use the code FIVE. All right, so when the Knicks put out their release that they were firing Tom Thibodeau, and now it looks like this was all to try to get Jason Kidd, which is interesting. Former Knicks coach Jason Kidd, who, by the way, was Giannis's first coach, played him at the point a lot early in his career. From my understanding was Giannis never really wanted Kidd fired, and they're trying to get Giannis also. But I want to get to a quote here because I think this is how Heat fans, some of them, particularly on Twitter, would like the Heat to operate. And I know you have specific feelings about this, which is they basically said Leon Rose, who does not speak to the media, by the way. Okay, so as much as I give the Heat trouble for, we only get Riley once and don't hear from anybody else publicly, other than Spo. Leon Rose has not spoken to the media in 5 years. Okay, so he's not going to be accountable for this anyway, but filing out a press release. But most Knicks fans are fine with Leon Rose because the organization's been such a bleep show for so long, and he's obviously turned it into a competitive organization now. Okay, so they don't really care if he talks to the media, but of course the media does. So Leon put out this statement essentially that we will stop at nothing or something along those lines. Okay, we will leave no stone unturned to try to win a championship here. And in their view, that was firing a coach who was very successful over the past 5 years. And whatever issues you may have with Tibbs playing guys too much or rotations or anything like that, you can't argue with the fact that the Knicks were a mess before he got there, and they made the playoffs for the last 5 years, and they made the conference finals this past season. I feel like there's a lot of Heat fans, Sean, that would like the Heat to sort of operate this way. Leave no stone unturned. Doesn't matter who you fire, what you do, but just keep searching. Just keep searching. And I think that some of these Heat fans feel like the Heat have been somewhat inert, that stability has led to inertia. Is that fair?
Famously, your friend George Sedano said, "I'd rather be the Sixers," right?
Yes.
This
I don't
would
claim him
overtake
as my friend
that.
when he that. Yeah. Yes.
It would be one of the wildest things to ever say as a Heat fan that you would rather operate like the New York Knicks. Like that in the existence of the Miami Heat over the past almost 50 years now. Like, when would you ever say that? Never. Like, they are a absolute disaster. It doesn't make any sense. So when we say things like that, yes, they had a better season than us this year. Yes, they had one better than us last year. But other than that, like, come on. The finals, like we've been to the Eastern Conference Finals multiple times. That was their best season in 25 years. We've did that how many times in the past 5 years? And it's the same type of season that these same fans would complain that they weren't enough, they didn't do enough. Okay. I just say that, like, the Knicks are going to, I agree with you about the whole connections between, like, the Jason Kidd. How are they going to get him? Is Dallas going to let him walk? Are they going to have to trade? That hasn't happened.
Right.
I think Doc, they don't really have the draft pick compensation to make that work. But then there's going to be connections. It's not going to me, it's not going to be like Johnny Bryant is the new Knicks coach and that's who replaces him. Mike Malone doesn't really make sense because it's like the Spider-Man meme. It's the same type of guy. Yeah. Except Malone actually has a ring. I just, and I know it's funny, like people talking about trading for Spo, like that would be if you really need an episode, that could be something you could throw out there. People would enjoy that. Like,
you just frozen on that one. They froze. Go ahead.
Turn for Spo if they traded them to the Knicks, and would they do it via the fax machine? And I said trade Spo to the Knicks. But look, it's just one of those weird situations where I don't think any of these connections are going to happen and how it relates to Miami.
Yeah, and we lost you for a little bit there. The Timu Wawa parking lot got you there with the wireless. But no, I got what you were saying. And look, they're not trading. I mean, every Knick fan was out there. It's so funny because Heat fans complain about Spo, and then every Knick fan was out there. This would be the dream to get Eric Spoelstra up there. There's no way that's happening. And the prospect of Eric Spoelstra going to work for James Dolan just cracks me up, actually, beyond the rest of it. But I totally get what you're saying. Okay. And obviously, look, as someone who grew up a Knicks fan, which I did, okay, lost my allegiances when I moved to South Florida. I was there in grad school when Riley was coaching the Knicks to the finals against Houston. So I familiar with their history, right? I think what again the place where Heat fans are is I think they want to see a little more Knicks in the Heat now. I don't think it's that they want to become the Knicks. I think they want to see a little bit more of okay, like we're not going to be that patient. And yet then I look at it and I'm like, well, would you have wanted to trade 5 first-round picks for Mikal Bridges if the Heat even had those picks, which they didn't? So then Heat fans will say, well, if you manage your assets better, then you'd have those first round picks, and then it wouldn't matter if you did. And I'm saying it still would matter. Like it matters now to the Knicks. Like not having those 5 first round picks, which they traded for basically a good player. He's not a superstar. He's a good player. On a good team, he is kind of what you saw. He's like a 3rd or 4th best guy. That's what he was in Phoenix when they won 60 plus games. But to trade 5 first round picks for that guy, and then now you're looking, okay, do they still have the ammunition? This is not the NFL where you can just keep extending contracts out, changing contracts, restructuring them to continue to have money. That in the NFL, like it's all make believe. In the NBA, it's real. Like if you don't have picks, if you've maxed out the wrong guys, and again we've talked about Bam and Tyler in this context, if you maxed out the wrong guys, then you're in trouble because you can't make moves going forward. And so I think where this is there's a balance. I think if the Heat came like 20% of the way to the Knicks, I could be talked into it. Like a little bit more aggressive in some of these situations, I could be talked into it, but I can't be talked into more. That's the thing. Because I think ultimately the Knicks are creating a situation and they got lucky by Brunson taking less money. Okay, that's helped them in some regard. It's helped them a lot. But I think the Knicks are heading essentially towards a train coming at them on the other side of this. Like this is I don't think this is going to end with a championship for them, and I don't think it's going to end particularly well, and I think it's going to send them back into the dark ages in a few years. I mean, is that fair or is that bias talking?
No, I agree, and I'll be short because I know my Wi-Fi connection isn't great, but like it's a sense of urgency. New York has had a sense of urgency, and really in the last few years, their front office has been very good. Their decisions have been very solid. However, if you apply that to the Heat, to me, the move that you would look at that would connect to that, you trade for KD. Like you would send the pieces out to go get KD.
Right.
A lot of people are against that. So like to me, I can't think like the Knicks didn't like strip it down and just like purposefully tank like some want it to happen and like trade out.
Right.
They didn't really have a Bam or a Tyler. Like those types of
Right.
things didn't happen. So while you want, I think it's like you said, I think you said it very well. You want a little bit more of the urgency that New York is operating with, trying to find ways to acquire talent, but I don't want to have the same. I don't want to be them by any means.
Well, they traded Randall, right, to get Towns, and now there's the whole issue of Towns and his defense, which was known before they got him.
Correct.
And they got Towns to play for Tibbs, and now Tibbs is gone. And one of the reasons was because there seemed to be a fraying of that connection. I mean, there's many stories out there about what exactly has happened here, but that's where we're at, and it is this constant churn, and you kind of get yourself in a mess. But then you see, look, I think the balance is you look at a team like Cleveland, right? Like they had a historic, well, not historic, but a really, 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 really good regular season, right? Which kind of ended how we thought it would end, although we didn't think it would end against Indiana. We thought it would end against Boston. And now they're open to trading Garland and perhaps to trading Jared Allen now. And I think so. In other words, there's a willingness to flip the roster to get to the next step, and I think that is where I think the majority of sane Heat fans would fall here. Like you're good, but you're not good enough. So we're going to try to maximize during our window, and that's what their issue with what happened during Jimmy's time, right? We're going to maximize.
Better. I was going to say that applies better 2 years ago. Like now we're in a different situation. Okay.
Correct, and that's what I'm getting at. Is I think that's a philosophy like what Cleveland is trying to do now, like with Kobe, like that I endorse. Like, okay, you have Donovan Mitchell, he's in his prime. Like we're going to try to figure out a way to make this work better. Garland is a sieve defensively. There's duplication in terms of their skill sets on offense. So we're going to try to reshuffle the roster, which they tried actually to do last year, and they didn't. And then it ended up with a really, really good regular season. But we again saw it flame out in the playoffs. Part of that was injury related, but part of it was, I think, fit. Okay, so that part of it. But to go full Knicks here, that I don't, I can't endorse that because I just don't think, even though Leon is much better at his job than predecessors were there, I just don't think that's going to end well. And eventually, you just run out of things to trade. You run out of picks, you run out of players, and even if you've gotten gifts like Brunson taking less. So anyway, we wanted to get into this because, and I'm probably retitle this episode like "Should the Heat become the Knicks," which is a little bit more inflammatory. And I can just tell you, as someone who grew up watching the Knicks, the answer to that is no. It's just no. I go back to the Trent Tucker, Louis Orr days, though. That's how old I am. So that's what the Knicks were, the Dolphins for 50 years, right? And I'll just say this: nobody wants to be the Dolphins. Sean, appreciate it. Follow me at S Rochester NBA and at Timu Wawas all over the greater Pennsylvania area. Have a good one, everybody.